Whoa! It's another Wednesday. It's time for Vikings Vintage, the show where we talk about Vikings history every week. We are the only people who do it. So this week we are talking offensive linemen and tight ends. We've had some great ones of both.
Score Vikings, let's win this game. Score Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Score Vikings, let's go.
So we've had some great tight ends. We've had some great offensive linemen. Pretty much since the start of the franchise. Uh, we have some Hall of Famers. We have some guys who should be in the Hall of Fame that are not.
Mm-hmm.
We have some tight ends that didn't necessarily catch the ball, but they were still good. Then we have, we have players who were on the roster today who would be considered top 10-ish, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you would consider this guy top 10 tight end history. He's the newest guy. Definitely, he's definitely not top. We all know who the top guy is.
Yeah.
We got good left tackle now. We got a good right tackle now. Our interior would not even be anywhere near considered top in Vikings history. Nowhere near.
Not even close, especially at the center position.
Yeah. Well, especially seeing how we probably have one of the best centers ever to play the game. His numbers retired. He went into the Hall of Fame, but unfortunately, by the time he went to the Hall of Fame, he wasn't there all the way in the head, unfortunately.
He was there in body, but not in mind.
Yeah. One of Frank Tarkenton's best friends, though.
Yeah, there were a couple of them on the offensive line. One was Mick, and the other one was Grady Alderman, the left tackle that was with him from 61 until he retired in 74. He was Fran's lifelong friend. He wasn't Grady Alderman was an original Viking, number 67, played left tackle for years. He after he retired from the Vikings, he was the play-by-play guy. He was a color guy on the Viking radio telecast. And then he spent a year as the general manager for the Denver Broncos. So, but then he and Grady's no longer with us either. But Grady was one of the first. Him and Tinglehall were the first real studs on the offensive line when the team was starting out.
So. Yeah, because we've had some. But let's start with only one of two ever number one overall picks by Minnesota. He's in the Hall of Fame, probably one of the best tackles ever. Played for the Vikings for a long time, and that's Mr. Ron Yeri.
Yeah.
I believe he was in all four Super Bowls.
Yeah, he was in all four. He started all four.
Yeah. So, yeah, he. I don't. I'm trying to remember if he played his last year with Minnesota or not.
No, he played with us up until 81. And then when they moved into the Dome, he was traded to the LA Rams. So he played a year with the Rams in 82, and then he retired after that.
Yeah, he was. It didn't take long for him to actually go into the Hall of Fame for what I believe. He is still with us. He's 77 years old.
He's still with us, yes.
Yep. So he was. So the first ever pick for the Vikings was first round pick was Tommy Mason, the running back they took in 61. Ron Yeri was 68, and that is it for number one overall pick for the Vikings, guys.
Yeah,
that's it.
One was because they were the expansion team. The
Yep.
other one was because they were just bad.
Yeah,
the year
they were
before.
actually bad for once.
Yeah.
Ron Yuri, like I said, didn't take long to be in the Hall of Fame. I think it was '87 he was inducted into the Hall of
He
Fame.
was inducted in.
So
It actually did take a while. It took him. He was inducted in '01.
let me see.
Yep. He was inducted in '01, and he retired in '81. It took him 20 years. Yeah.
See, he was it says, oh, okay. Yeah, so the College Hall of Fame was '87,
Mm-hmm.
which the college seems like the college gets it right for some reason more than what the NFL does.
Well, in the NFL, it's a lot of politics. And plus, Yuri was on 4 teams that lost 4 Super Bowls, and that's what everybody remembers. Especially the writers. Um,
That's the best woman in the world because she gave birth to the best person in the world. Um, um, but yeah,
and when it comes to Ron Yuri being as good as he was, that give a shout out there. Every day in practice with the Vikings, Ron Yuri lined up on Carl Eller. So as they say, iron sharpens iron.
yeah,
And
kind of like Darisaw and Hunter today.
right. Ed White and Alan Page. Oh, Trish is here. Hey, baby. Ed White lined up on Alan Page and Gary Larson every day in practice. Grady Aldman for years in practice lined up on Jim Marshall. So, that's our offensive lines where they didn't get the notoriety that the defensive lines did, but they were very good. And McTinglehoff at one time was the best center in all of football, him and Jim Otto. There were 2 centers that were rated the best. One was Mick Tingelhoff in the NFL, and the other was Jim Otto. And of course, Mick was not drafted. Mick was a free agent. But he was that foundation. He was the one that made the line adjustments at the line of scrimmage, all the way up until he retired. So
Tinkelhoff, I think by far away. I don't even think it's close. Vikings have had some good centers, but I think he would probably be the best center in Vikings history. And I wouldn't even. I would say Matt Burke is probably second. And I don't think it's close.
it's not close at all. It's not close at all. For Vikings have had stability at center because once you had Tingelhoff, then a lot of people forget about Dennis Swilly, who was very good as a center. And then we went through the whole Les Steckel debacle, and we didn't even have Swilly. Swilly retired because Steckel wanted to move him to guard. But he moved Jim Huff, the guard.
Did Steckel do anything good? Do anything right?
The only thing he did right was get fired. Literally.
Yeah.
For that year, we had Jim Huff, he was hurt. And we had a guy named Ron Sams play center, who he hadn't played center since high school. And then we had Grant Fiesel, who spent most of his time with the Seahawks. But once Bud came back, Bud went back to Swilly, but he also drafted Kirk Loudermilk out of Ohio State.
I love that guy.
So Kirk Loudermilk became the starting center up until free agency hit, which was '93.
I think Kirk Loudermilk is my. I think the reason why I like Kirk Loudermilk so much is because he was one of the first Vikings I ever got when I opened up a pack of football cards.
Oh, and it was a Loudermilk jersey?
It was a Loudermilk card. So okay. I think that's it. But yeah, go to this comment real quick. I usually like to watch, I'll get a bug every now and again, and I'll watch Hall of Fame speeches by Vikings players. That's why I would not watch.
Fran had to give Mickey a speech.
Because that was so, I wouldn't wish dementia or Alzheimer's. He had them both.
Yeah, he was.
On my worst enemy. Oh God, that's so heartbreaking to watch.
Like I said, when I talked to Bob Lertzma after, it was like a year after, and I had talked to Bob about it, and Bob's like, he didn't even remember. He didn't. He was just there in body. That's it.
Or maybe looking at that gold jacket because he knows what the gold jacket is. So
Right.
you know,
But when they get dementia, they're in another.
yeah, that's true too.
They're in another dimension.
Especially with how bad he had it. So
Right. But yeah, that was,
So
and it took him, and like Fran said, it took him what 37 years to get into the Hall of Fame.
too long.
And Jim Marshall's still waiting. Jim's going on like 45, maybe even more. But
So
it's just when you think about Ironmen that the teams have had, the ones at the top of the list are both Jim Marshall on the offense, Mick Tingelhoff on the or Mick on the offense, Jim on the defense.
so would you say the offensive linemen in the '60s were Tingelhoff, Yuri, and Alderman? Would you consider those the three best ones?
Tingelhoff and Alderman. Yuri didn't start until 69. We drafted him in 68, but he didn't become a starter till 69. So he was splitting time actually with Doug Davis at right tackle. The two stellar linemen that we had on the offensive line in the 60s were Grady Alderman, Mick Tingelhoff. We also had a guard named Larry Bowie, who was very good. Never made all pro, but was very consistent. Played well. But I believe he retired after the 68 season. But the two best ones were Alderman and Tingelhoff.
Yeah, it's sad part is not too many people talk about Alderman.
Well, Alderman was there in the 60s. What happened was, as the 70s rolled in, when the Vikings got on that run of great teams, Alderman was at the end of his career. Alderman in 1974 was replaced by Chuck Goodrum, who moved to guard. But the team also drafted Steve Riley in 74 out of USC, who eventually took over that left tackle spot. And Chuck Goodrum moved to left guard. At one time, the team also had Andy Mauer, who could play guard and tackle too. But the stalwarts of the line in the 70s were Tingelhoff, Ed White at right guard, and Ron Yuri at right tackle. That was the strength of the Vikings offense.
But the weird thing about Alderman was that he was the expansion pet.
Yeah, he was expansion draft.
So he was actually drafted by the Lions.
He was an original Viking, as they say, because he was taken in the expansion draft. But yeah, he was a Lion.
Thank you, Lions, for being the Lions again.
Yeah. Well, and here's another Grady Alderman. His college was the University of Detroit.
Which I don't even think they play.
I don't even know if they're still open.
Is it Detroit Mercy, or is it just?
It was just the University of Detroit.
Oh wow! Because then the Detroit Mercy still, but they're basketball school. But
yeah, it was just Detroit. That was the college he went to. But yeah, he was with the Lions, and then we took him in the expansion draft.
Too early. You're so silly.
Oh, too evil. You are the man.
Yeah.
But he was that one of those players then. He was also one of those veterans that Bud Grant relied on when he came to the team. Matter of fact, Bud had three captains, Grady Alderman, Jim Marshall, and Jim Lindsay was the special teams captain. And then it was Bill Brown after Jim. But yeah, it was, Grady was a captain, him and Jim both. And he had that up until he retired in 74. And then the captain was, of course, and rightfully so, Mick Tingelhoff.
So think about just the history of the Vikings.
Hey, Norpheus.
There's another guy. What about Wes Hamilton?
Wes Hamilton took over. We drafted him in 76. You got his college there? It wasn't Tulsa, was it?
Let's see. He was picked in the third round of the University of Tulsa.
It was Tulsa. Okay.
Yeah.
Wes was he was going to be the heir apparent to somebody, I don't know, but he was drafted in the 3rd round in 76. He played quite a bit in 77 because Ed White was in a holdout. So he ended up playing right guard quite a bit.
I mean, he did play 76 to 84, so it wasn't like he had a short.
He was a backup until 78 when they traded Ed White to the Chargers. So West became a starter in 78 all the way up until 84. Injuries finally ended his career because he had a lot of them. 84, I think he missed most of the year with an injury. But he was durable. He didn't miss a game. He was durable. That's one thing that the Vikings offensive line has been is durable. They've had players that were durable.
Yeah.
Ron Yeary never missed a game. And then Ron Yeary's replacement, Tim Irwin, didn't miss a game from 82 until 1993 at right tackle. So Irwin played that spot for damn near 13, 14 years, maybe 15.
For go back to Hampton, his son played.
Yeah, Ben played at the University of Minnesota. He was I think he was an Outland Trophy winner.
And he played for Seattle in the NFL.
Right. And he played in the NFL. But yeah, Ben was a center. I think he was an All-American center at the University of Minnesota.
This is, I mean, you got Milt's son on here, or Sunday, or Cindy, whatever.
And Sunday was another guy that was durable. He's
64 to 74.
Yeah, he was a starter for years.
He went to Bloomington High School and the University of Minnesota.
Yeah, he's a college teammate of Carl Eller and Bobby Bell.
But he was he was in 2 of the 4 Super Bowls.
Yep. Actually, he was in 3 because he didn't play in Super Bowl 9, but he was on the team in Super Bowl 9.
Well, it says he started 2 of the 4.
Yeah, he did. He started he wasn't supposed to. No, actually, he got hurt in Super Bowl. He was supposed to start in Super Bowl 8. He got hurt the day before in practice. He pulled something. Frank Gallagher ended up starting in that Super Bowl because Ron was hurt. But yeah, he was a very dependable player, very dependable, and a local guy. So,
well, you know how Vikings fans like the guys from Minnesota.
Oh yeah. Burke is from my hometown, St. Paul. He's from St. Paul, Minnesota. Burke was from St. Paul. Milt was local. I can't think of anybody else that was local. Not on the offensive line. Right off the top.
We're just like, and you got Ed White. We've talked about Ed White on this show so many times.
Ed White's a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame because not only did he block for Tarkenton, he also blocked for Dan Fouts. And he played 17 years.
Yeah.
A great guy, too. I met Ed here. I've talked to Ed a bunch of times. He's one of those guys that should be in the Hall of Fame. The Vikings had a right side of the line that was the best in the NFL with Ed White and Yeary in the 70s. They were the best. And Ed at one time was the NFL arm wrestling champion.
It's just the guys. I mean, the guys that they have. We talked about Irwin earlier. The thing about Irwin was he was a giant. I mean, the offensive linemen now, they're still not even as big as he was. He was 6'7", over 300.
Yeah,
we're talking 81, 82.
Yeah, he was a big guy.
He
was a big guy. And we haven't even mentioned the guys we got around that same time too. The greats when we got the Hall of Famers and Gary Zimmerman and Randall McDaniel. How great were those guys? They're both in the Hall of Fame. That left side of the line at one time was the equivalent to the right side of the line that the Vikings had in the 70s.
Yeah.
But that left side in the 80s with Gary Zimmerman and Randall McDaniel was the best in football up until Zimmerman had a disagreement with Denny Green, and he ended up being traded to the Broncos. And then we drafted Todd Stussy in '94, and then it, once again, and Stussy was good. Stussy was he was a mauler. He had that attitude, that old school football attitude.
Yeah.
Where Randall was just a all around athlete.
Well, he was a hell of an athlete. Oh, I know he didn't play his whole career in Minnesota, but what about where would you put Jim Langer?
Jim Langer?
Yeah, Langer. Yeah.
He's one of the best centers ever played a game, but he just never played with the Vikings. If I remember anything I remember Jim Langer as an NFL player, it's as a Miami Dolphin.
I mean, I know he did play as a Viking, but
yeah, he spent 2 years with the Vikings.
Yeah,
but he was his best years were with the Dolphins. Yeah, his best years were with the Dolphins. We had him. We had John Vella at a time, the former Raider.
Yeah,
he which I actually liked Vella. We had him. He split time in 1980 with Steve Riley. Riley went through some issues. He had a neck injury in '78, and he was replaced by Frank Myers.
Riley is definitely somebody who's underrated. Like if he still played 11 seasons, even with all his injuries, he still played 11 seasons. And it just makes you wonder if he didn't have these injuries, how good he really would have been.
Well, and he's unfortunately he was the product of friggin' Les Steckel, because Steckel switched tackles. Riley was usually a left tackle. Tim Irwin was your right tackle. Well, in 1984, Les Steckel came up with this great idea that he's going to flip the tackles. So he moved Irwin to left and Riley to right. Disastrous results. So, it's kind of like you went through the whole Steckel debacle, as I call it. And he came back. He came to camp in '85, and he didn't have it. He called it quits. He retired. Riley did. And he's unfortunately no longer with us either. So
yeah, somebody else who's no longer with us is I don't know where you would rank him. Charlie Goodwin.
Chuck Goodrum?
Yeah, I don't know where you would rank him. I know he's not top, but I wouldn't say he's probably bottom either. He's probably upper middle. He's probably closer to the top than he's the bottom, definitely, though.
He's right in there with the Jim Valones, the Larry Bowies, your Brian Habibs, your guys like that. He was serviceable. Your Todd Kalises. He was good.
It just tells you how good the history of the Vikings offensive line is.
Yeah.
I mean, Brian Habib, serviceable. He would have been a starter or great on a lot of different teams. But for us,
he started with the Broncos. Yeah. He was a starter with the Broncos. Chuck ended up retired. Chuck Good, they called him Chuck Goody, as they called him. He retired in '80, but he had been with the team since '72. Todd Kalis went to school with Randall McDaniel, and then they both got drafted the same year by the Vikings. So they were college teammates and NFL teammates. Jim Valone played on that '69 team, and then he started in the Super Bowl. Well, then in 1971, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's disease, which forced him to retire early, which led to Ed White moving into the starting position. And Jim left us in '77. He was 33 when he passed away, but it was Hodgkin's disease that took him. But yeah, he was another one. They weren't household names, but they were all very good. And yeah, Goody was one of them. Yep. Yeah, Goody he was one of them. He was a very good player.
So his numbers retired. I wouldn't know if how good he would have been. Um, I don't even know if he was good enough to have his number retired, but we know why his number got retired. I think he probably would end up getting in the Ring of Honor. I don't know about his number being retired, but Corey Stringer.
He was coming off his
I mean, he was good, but I don't know if his number would have been retired. Like
he
it
was
is now.
coming off his I think he was coming off his first Pro Bowl or maybe second Pro Bowl, which back then the Pro Bowl meant something.
Yeah, that was a joke.
He had the respect of the player. He was actually one of the best in the league at the time. And the NFL was kind of going in that direction where they wanted the big, and he was athletic for his size, very athletic. But he just in the off season would just gain weight, and nobody knew why.
He was out of Ohio State,
right? Yeah, he was drafted the same year we had two number ones in '95. Derek Alexander was one, and the other number one was Corey Stringer.
Yeah, he was He was only 6'4". I thought he was taller than that, but 335.
Yeah, and the 335 is generous.
Yeah, that's not a gut of a 335.
No, they had him 335 coming out of college, but there were times where even in the off season, and it worried Denny. They even sent him to Boston College to see why it would happen. Corey gained massive weight in the off season.
Yeah,
with the diet and everything, but he would still get damn near 400 pounds. They didn't know why. And he wasn't overeating. He wasn't doing anything. He was exercising, still gaining weight. They couldn't understand it. So the Vikings did have him go for tests at Boston University and stuff like that. What's the name was worried about him? Coach Green. Denny Green was very worried about him.
Well, that's why everybody loves Dennis Green, because he actually did care about his players.
Yeah, because he was gaining weight, unexplained weight. And then for when it happened, and I remember that summer because it was my first summer as semi-pro, and it was hotter than hell and humid every day up here. So when that happened to Corey, you knew it just was like, one, it caught me out of the blue, but I had just lost my parents earlier that year. So when the report came out that they had the whole offensive line go to the hospital to see Corey, I knew something was up. That was kind of my way subliminally them. That's not good. And then I got the call from a buddy of mine the next morning that Corey had passed away. And I was just it was one of those things. It just bummed your whole day. It just did. But he was well on his way to being another all-pro season, because the offensive line he was then the stud of the offensive line. And we still had Burke, we had Lucina, but he was the stud of the offensive line. And then when we lost him, it just took the sales out of the whole team, put it that way.
You know? They ended up being, that was not very good.
No,
So going back to Loudermilk, where would you put him on there?
As far as centers go?
Yeah.
Tingelhoff 1. Burke. Actually, you know what? A tie between him and Burke. Burke got the All-Pro honors, but Loudermilk should have got some All-Pro honors. And he didn't in the 80s. But, yeah, I got him right up there with Matt Burke. Burke was bigger than him.
Is it because he didn't play his whole career with Minnesota?
No, but his whole his early career before he went to Indianapolis, he was a Viking and he never got the kudos. But then again, those same accolades were reserved for Zimmerman and McDaniel. But
Yeah.
Loudermilk should have got some credit. Irwin didn't get any credit either. And Irwin was
Oh, that's
the man.
typical Vikings.
Yeah, Irwin didn't get any credit either.
Uh,
So
unless you're like out of this world great, like Moss,
well, even
or
Randall McDaniel was just he was when they say a freak of nature, the man was so athletic. I mean, he just was. Randall McDaniel was just another breed. He had the ugliest stance in all of football as far as lining up, but it worked for him.
it was one of the first to wear a visor.
Actually, the Vikings were like the first team to incorporate that whole visor thing. Mark Mulaney was the first one, and the Vikings designed that for him. He got poked in the eye, and then next thing you know, Randall McDaniel's was dark. His was dark,
Yeah.
and then the NFL changed the rule where it had to be clear. So, but I think his stayed dark for a few years. I think his was dark up until he retired.
Yeah.
So, but
It's a
unfortunately,
shame that he also didn't finish his career in Minnesota.
yeah, he was a cap casualty, and that was Denny. That was Denny. Denny was also the GM at the time. So, but there's one person we got to give credit to as far as this offensive line goes, and that was for a lot of the guys. It was offensive line coach John Michaels. He was with Bud Grant in Canada. Bud brought him to Minnesota, and once John Michaels became the offensive line coach, my God, he coached all pros and Hall of Famers, and he was a hell of a coach. John Michaels was. But you ask any of those old school players, I mean, John Michaels even coached Gary Zimmerman. He coached Randall McDaniel, Tim Irwin. They all loved him. He was one hell of an offensive line coach. Unfortunately, he got fired by Denny down at the I think it was the East-West Shrine game. It was one of the bowl games. They were coaching down there, and Denny fired him. And I think that was at the end of the '93 season. So, but yeah, he was a great offensive line coach.
Yeah. I had stuff ready, but I'm doing more searches, and the great players, offensive linemen, they just keep stacking.
There's a bunch of them.
It's kind of ridiculous. Between wide receiver, defensive line, and offensive line, the Vikings have had it pretty good. I think this last era of the Vikings offensive line has probably been the worst in Vikings history.
Yeah, because you don't have one, there's been so many changes.
Yeah.
And there just has been an uncertainty on the offensive line. I mean, I'm trying to think, just when Zimmer was here, the guy that was supposed to be that next great offensive lineman was Matt Khalil. It didn't pan out.
Well, he didn't care about football.
And he didn't care about
football. His brother did, but he didn't.
Yeah, he was more interested in his pizza chain.
Yeah.
Which wasn't bad, by the way. But we haven't had those offensive linemen that now we hope we can get Darasan O'Neal to where at least Tim Irwin was and at least where Grady Alderman was. But in between those guys, I mean, we haven't had anybody on the offensive line worth giving a damn about.
Not since from pretty much 2009 to recently.
Right.
There really wasn't any good offensive linemen. I mean, when you're rolling out Charles Johnson, Ryan Cook, what was it?
Anthony Herrera.
What's the
center?
Rashawn Jones. What was that? What was his last name? Rashawn. His first name was Rashawn. 69. He was the backup.
Rashawn Hill.
He started. I mean, they're in the. From the late years of Childress to the early years of Zimmer, the offensive line was pretty bad.
The only offensive lineman they had that was a perennial All-Pro Burke was also, but
Yeah.
Steve Hutchinson, who came from Seattle. I consider
Right.
Hutchinson more of a Seahawk than I do a Viking.
Well, the 09 offensive line was good.
Yeah, with
So,
McKinney.
Yeah, with McKinney at left tackle.
But here's the thing: McKinney's the only person I've ever known to get kicked off a Pro Bowl team.
I mean, you want that nastiness as an offensive lineman, don't you?
Yeah, but what the hell I want to get kicked off a Pro Bowl team for? Come on. I mean, my God, it's a vacation.
Not for him. He had work to get done.
Yeah, he was as good a player as he was an idiot and other things.
Yeah. Let's see, we talked about Steve Riley.
We had Phil Lodeholt, who unfortunately, if he doesn't tear his Achilles, is probably still playing at right tackle. He's now in Colorado with Deion Sanders. He's on his coaching staff. But
would you Chris Hinton? You would consider him more of a Falcon than a Viking, right?
I'm more of a Colt.
Okay.
More of a Colt. He was part of that John Elway trade.
Okay.
Denver drafted him first, but Denver drafted him, and then of course the Colts drafted Elway, and they switched him. They swapped him on draft day. But yeah, I consider him more of a. I mean, he only spent 2 years with the Vikings. He was only 2 years with us, so I consider him more of a Colt and a Falcon. There's a couple of players I consider their other teams more than Vikings. One is Steve Hutchinson. The other one is Chris Hinton. Jeff Christie, I consider him a Viking, even though he won.
Even though he played for the Bucks.
Yeah.
David Dixon,
always a Viking. Still in the Twin Cities.
Yeah,
he's
still that was a big man.
I'll tell you what, that side of the line with him and Stringer, that right side that Denny put together. Denny put together a hell of an offensive line.
He's Australian, wasn't he?
Huh?
David Dixon's Australian, isn't he?
Yes. Or New Zealand?
One of those.
Yeah. But he put those two. I mean, David was they say 350. I think he was bigger than that. And with Corey being 335 as he was listed, that's one hell of a right side of the line. You know,
I think they ran to the right side.
Mm-hmm. And they did run to the right side with Robert Smith.
New Zealand.
Huh?
New Zealand,
yep. So that 98 line was Stussy, McDaniel, Christie, Dixon, and Stringer. That was the 98 line. You know, and then when you look at the Vikings' last line that they played in the Super Bowl, the last starting offensive line, it was Steve Riley, Chuck Goodrum, Mick Tingelhoff, Ed White, and Ron Urey. With the weak side of the line being that left side of the line. That's the side of the line that they ran the ball on at the goal line with Brett McClanahan, and he fumbled.
Right. And so with the 80s, they had Zimmerman.
With the 80s, it was Zimmerman, and then 88 they got McDaniel, but it was Zimmerman, McDaniel, Loudermilk.
Yep.
Brian Habib, who split time with Todd Kalis.
Yeah.
And Tim Irwin.
Yeah.
So we always had steady offensive line play.
Yeah.
Always. It didn't.
Vikings have always been good in the trenches for a long time.
The instability on the offensive line for the Vikings came, and I'm going to be honest with you, in the Zimmer era.
Yeah.
It came in the Zimmer era. Even Childress, as much as I hate that guy.
Well, because he brought in Hutchinson because he knew he needed help.
He put the poison pill in a contract to screw over Seattle.
Did he go in as a Viking or a Seahawk?
That's a good question. I think he went in as a Seahawk. I know Gary Zimmerman went in as a Bronco.
Well, his departure from Minnesota wasn't the best.
No, he had a falling out with Denny Green, and He went in. Matter of fact, it was Pat Bolin that did the speech for him. But he went in as a Bronco. But he does show up at when it comes to Viking Hall of Famers. He is there with the Vikings. He is there with the Viking players. So, I think it was more personal with him. Well, like I said before, Alan Page wasn't sure if he was going in as a Viking or a Bear when he got elected. So
he usually is. I wouldn't think the NFL would let him go in as a Bear.
Who?
Page.
Well, they couldn't say anything. They couldn't say anything because he when they do the artwork, they want to know who are you going in as and what do you consider yourself, And he was going in as a Bear because he was still mad at the Viking front office. But he did go in as a Viking. So, but yeah, with because they consider Hutchinson was a Viking. I mean, there's former Vikings that are in the Hall of Fame that they went in as with other teams, but recently Hutchinson is the one. He went in as a Seahawk.
So, where would you rank? It might be too early, but would you put O'Neal and Darisaw as one of the top 3 tackle tandems in history
of the team?
Yeah,
it's too early to tell.
They have the potential to be, though.
They could be, but now like if O'Neal can stay healthy, which is now, I mean, he's not playing Saturday, so it depends on the health.
That's all right. We got Q-Bear playing, so.
Oh, jeez, whatever.
But Darisaw, I mean, would you probably put him top 3 left tackle in the league right now?
Right now, yeah. But I mean, he's only been in the league 3 years.
Yeah,
he's had a few injury problems too. We gotta give him at least let him get past his rookie contract.
Yeah.
After that, it's open for discussion. But at the moment, they could be. But the Vikings haven't really had a good.
The Vikings have not had a good left tackle since McKinney.
Their tackle tandem, it's like either the left tackle's good or the right tackle's bad, or the right tackle's good and the left tackle's bad. They've never had both that were at the same cohesive, except maybe Zimmerman and Irwin.
Like they have now.
Like they have now.
But Norris, appreciate you showing up every week, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Norpheus. Have a good night. But like with Zimmerman and Irwin, you still had the guys in the middle. Unfortunately,
they don't. I mean, I wouldn't even put Bradbury. He's nowhere.
Bradbury doesn't rank. He doesn't rank
because he's not. I mean, we've already named some better than him. I mean, Loudermilk, Tanglehoff, Christie, Burke.
I can name others that are better than him. Yeah. Sullivan.
Yeah, John Sullivan. He was I think he was underrated.
He was. His back injuries did him in. He had back injuries. John Sullivan. We already said Loudermilk.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think now. Jeff Christie. Who took over for Burke? Oh hell, we had Adam Schreiber.
I think Sullivan took over for Burke.
Sullivan took over for Burke, but Burke missed a year of football. Who played football? Withrow. Corey Withrow.
Yeah.
With Bradbury is only brought back. I don't know why Bradbury was brought back, but he's looks like what he is. Nothing special. So I don't even. He's at the bottom as far as.
And then, do you think they traded Ezra Cleveland? Offensive line hasn't been the same since they traded him.
Well, and also if you notice, Jacksonville's got Ezra playing tackle now.
Yeah.
Ezra was going to be gone at the end of the season anyway because he's a natural left tackle. He's a natural tackle.
Well, he wasn't going to play that with Darisaw here.
No, he wasn't going to play that with Darisaw here. So we've got a guard in Reisner. I think with the Viking line right now, with all those Viking lines before, they had good coaching. They really did. I mean, we had Keith Davidson was after
Well,
Mike.
according to some people, coaching doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, and they don't know football. They don't know football. Just because these guys are professionals, they still got to be coached. You still got to put them in the right places. Here's the thing with football now, it's not checkers, it's chess.
Right.
So you have to think like that.
They don't really teach fundamentals. They tweak you. They tweak your stance to make you better.
Yeah.
But they really don't. They don't teach fundamentals at the pro level. They may tweak it, but other than that, they don't. Yeah, it's on you.
The NFL as a whole doesn't spend a lot of time on. I think the NFL is so wrapped up in the quarterback and wide receiver, the passing game, that it forgets that it all starts at the line of scrimmage. And so now the passing game is predicated on quarterbacks getting rid of the ball right away.
It also goes back to college. They're not being traditional offensive linemen.
No,
either. That's why the teams that constantly have a pro style offense, that's where you get your best offensive linemen from, for the most part. Michigan's, the Notre Dame's, the Ohio States, and Nebraskas,
And nobody plays a traditional.
Yeah. Well, Notre Dame still plays a pro style offense
anymore. It's basically run and gun offense now. And that's why running backs aren't making any money. That's why you have such a high turnover on the offensive line. It's when you find those stud offensive linemen, you hang on to them. It's not like it was back in the day.
Yeah.
So an offensive line play is different. It's just different now.
Yeah, it's I guess you can kind of, even though he's quote unquote a tight end, but like guys like Stu Voigt, they really aren't what you would consider what a tight end is today. Yes, quote, they were a tight end, but they were more like a six offensive lineman.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, Stu Voigt played 131 games. He only had 177 catches.
Hell of a run blocker, though.
So, same Joe Sensor, 49 games played, 165 receptions.
Joe, here's the thing with Joe. If Joe doesn't have a bad knee, he probably has a great NFL career. He was a Pro Bowl player in 81, but he hurt his knee, so he didn't play. He had, what did he have, 81, 83 catches in 81? Or 79? He had 79. So he was like, him and Kellen Winslow were like the top tight ends in the NFL at one time. But he had a knee problem.
Yeah, he only played 49 games.
He missed a lot of time with a knee. He had to retire at the end of the 84 season. He had to announce his retirement because his knees were so bad. But when he retired, the starter became probably the greatest tight end in Viking history, Steve Jordan.
Yeah. So Steve Jordan, I think he leads. The only thing I believe he does not lead in is touchdowns.
Right.
He had four. He was 2 receptions shy of 500 for his career.
Yeah.
He had 6,300 yards. He averaged 12.7 yards a catch, which is big for tight end.
Yep.
He averaged 35 yards a game. His longest reception year was only 28 yards, though. So he actually had 4 rushing touchdowns.
Well, no, you know what? He had a 68-yard TD against not the Dolphins, against the Redskins.
Let me see.
In 86. Yes, Bob Sweet. I remember John Beasley real well. I do remember John Beasley. Beasley was one of those big tight ends from California, but he was a good pass catcher too. Very good pass catcher. He split time with Stu Voigt up until 73 or 74, I believe.
Let me go over here, Vaughn. Okay. Um, you know what the weird thing is here? They have his year to year here. Um, they had the like they had the one that I mentioned as their long, but when you look at his career long, it says 68.
Yeah, that was the one against the Redskins.
Yeah. So they must have. Yeah, they must. Yeah,
Yep, that was the one
either the
against the
page didn't
Redskins.
load correctly, or but yeah. I mean, would you stat wise, him and Rudolph are the best two wide receivers, but I don't know best two tight ends, but I don't know if I would put Rudolph second all time.
No, I got Rudolph. Although Rudolph was good, I've got
Oh yeah,
Rudolph.
we're not saying Rudolph wasn't good. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
I've got.
you know,
I've got. Uh, as far as patch casting tight ends go, catching yards and all that, I've got Jordan 1, Rudolph 2. But all around tight ends, because tight ends have to block.
yeah.
That's a big thing for me. Jordan 1, Stu Voigt 2.
Well, because when you look at the all-time receptions, Steve Jordan had 498, Rudolph had 453. Then there's a huge drop-off.
Yeah.
Shenko is the next one with 208.
Shenko had 208 with the Vikings?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Wiggins,
Oh, my God. Yeah.
186. Stu Voigt with 177. Sensor with 165.
Where's John Beasley on there?
Let me see. I'm not even. Let me see. Looks like I gotta pay to get the rest of it. But they have. They don't have him listed on here.
Okay, because he was with the Vikings from 67 to 73. I don't think he caught.
Yeah, it goes after Wiggins. It goes Klein Saucer.
As he Kleinstosser was a tight end, but he spent more time at fullback.
Yeah,
But I consider him more of a fullback. But he was a player.
you said John Beasley.
Yeah, John Beasley.
Okay, John Beasley. 70. He had. He's played 75 games, 1,200 yards receiving, 95 receptions.
Oh, he only had 95. Okay, he didn't have 100.
12.9 per reception, 27 for games. He had 9 touchdowns.
And Bob Hawk will catch him if he doesn't
12
get
touchdowns, sorry.
Okay. Hawk will catch him if he doesn't get hurt. And in today's passing game, yeah, he's going to catch him sooner than later. Just with the way the football is now.
Well, Hawkinson is already 8th all-time in receptions.
Is he 8th already?
Yep. And he gets 7 more. He ties Kleinstosser.
And Kleinstosser was here how many years?
Yeah. The yardage wise, Hawkinson, he's 8th. So right now, Hawkinson stat wise, as far as receptions and yards, is 8th all time already.
Wow, he's in a different era too. I mean, he's a predominant target.
Yeah, and he has. He's a little bit farther down on the touchdowns. He only has 8 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's a lot of passes here, but he's not finding the end zone.
Irv Smith has more touchdowns than he does. I would have never guessed that.
Okay, we've got to write that stat here.
Irv Smith has 9 touchdowns. Hawkinson has 8.
God.
So for touchdowns, it goes Rudolph, Jordan, Shenko, Voigt, Sensor.
Wait a minute. Did you say Rudolph, Jordan, and Shenko?
Shenko is 3rd. Touchdowns, 24.
Wow.
This is just reception touchdowns. It's not total touchdowns because Steve Jordan had a rushing touchdown.
Jordan had a rushing touchdown, 84. I remember.
Right, and Steve Voigt had one as well.
Steve Voigt had one in 72. I remember that one too.
So here's a name not too many people know: Gordon Smith.
Oh, I know Gordy. He was a starter for Tarkington up until 66?
Yeah. So like I said, so for touchdowns, Rudolph, Jordan, Shenko, Voigt, Sensor, Gordon Smith, Beasley, Andrew Glover, Irv Smith both have 9. Hawkinson and 8. As a Brewer, Bruer,
Bob Brewer, yeah.
he's got 7. Kleinsasser only had 6. Wiggins only had 6. Malarkey had 5. Renkow had 5. Tucker had 5. Carpenter 4.
What was their name? Reichow?
Reichow.
Okay. I thought Reichow was a wide receiver.
They have him listed as a tight end. Maybe did he play tight end for a couple of years? I don't know.
I don't know. What is it?
Red Ellison only had 3. Jeez.
Oh, Red Ellison. I've got to remember him.
John Carlson only had 1. But yeah, I mean, TJ Hawkinson is definitely playing in a different league because his numbers compared to everybody else.
Oh yeah, Hawkinson
year and a half is just ridiculous.
And Hawkins has been was the primary target for Dobbs and for Kirk, as when JJ was hurt. We'll see what Mullins does, but yeah, he's gonna catch up to the other tight ends.
He's eighth in yardage as well. He's gonna pass Jimmy here probably next game. Here, I gotta say something. I don't think we realize how much Fishante did for this team.
He benefited from Brett.
He's either 3rd or 4th pretty much in every tight end category.
Yeah, he benefited from Brett.
Like there's only 3 tight ends in Vikings history that has over 2,000 yards. Jordan, Rudolph, and Shenko. That's it.
Yep.
Voigt missed it by 81 yards.
Yeah, Voigt ended up losing his starting job to at the time Bob Tucker, who came from the Giants, and Joe Sensor. But yeah, he was predominantly. I mean, and Stu was good.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
I remember Joe Sensor even even not living in Florida, having DirecTV and having like the Midwest Sports Channel.
Yeah,
I still got to see all those Sensor commercials.
Oh yeah, yeah. His commercial. He started doing a lot in the Twin Cities here. He owned a restaurant and all that other stuff. He has suffered a stroke. He made his way back from it. So, what's up, Zoe?
Man, Kleinsasser was a lumberjack.
Players loved him.
Yeah.
Players loved him.
Yeah.
So, hey, we are going to have to cut this short, Curtis.
That's why I was kind of blowing through the tight ends.
Yeah.
I was just so yeah.
Best O-lineman in team history, Zoe, without a doubt, Randall McDaniel.
Yeah.
Randall McDaniel, without a doubt. Randall McDaniel is probably the best guards to ever play in the NFL. He was that dog. Let's just put it that way.
And then probably second Tingelhoff, third Gary.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now you put me on the spot.
He's from his mom and his dad, so come on, man. Randall McDaniel with Arizona State.
Randall McDaniel played college ball at Arizona State.
Yeah, he went to Arizona State.
I think second, I'm going to go Tingelhoff.
Yeah.
And he went to Nebraska.
Undrafted.
And then Ron Urey is a California guy. He came from USC. Now, Ron Urey drafted for 2 Hall of Fame NFL running backs. Well, one should be in the Hall of Fame. The should be in the Hall of Fame is Chuck Foreman.
Yeah.
The Hall of Famer is O.J. Simpson at USC.
When Hugh McEnany was gone by the time.
Yeah, McElhaney was gone by 63.
But he didn't go in he went in as a Cardinal, didn't he?
Oh, Hugh?
Yeah.
He went in as a Niner.
Minor, okay.
He went in as a 49er.
But yeah, so if TJ Hawkinson continues, he's gonna break every tight end record. He averages 59 yards.
Right. Bob, you bring that up. Urey did hold a lot at the end of his career. He did do that. But I think they had changed the whole offensive with holding and what was it? So they had changed it then. But yeah, he got a couple of holding calls a game. And they were only 10-yarders. Did 15-yarders or personal. I can't think of an offensive lineman as a Viking that got called for a personal foul ever. Then that's because they were always disciplined.
Yeah.
Oh no, I take that back. We played the Raiders in '84, and Tim Irwin got into it with Lyle Alzado. Lyle Alzado yanked off his helmet and wouldn't, was trying to take it from him,
Wait,
get him over
what
the
year
head.
was that?
84. And not Yuri, but Irwin stood up to him, and Irwin got flagged for it.
I wonder if Millard and Lyle had a little conversation at some time during the game.
Millard wasn't there because he didn't sign with the Vikings that year.
Right. I was just saying.
Yeah.
That's probably why Lyle did it, because Millard wasn't there.
Yeah, so he wasn't gonna. I mean, and Yuri stood. Not Yuri. I keep saying Yuri. Irwin stood up to him.
Well, Irwin was bigger too, was he? Irwin was bigger.
Yeah, Irwin was like 6'7".
Yeah,
Al was like 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
But yeah, he was holding back in the day 15 yards. I thought it was 10. I thought it's always been 10.
That I would not know. God.
I thought it was always 10.
God.
It's been 10 that I can remember.
Steve Stonebreaker. Wow.
Oh my God, Steve Stonebreaker from back in the day?
Just shows it. Just end this with tight ends real quick. I know he's not a great tight end. We picked him up in the middle of the season from the Packers, but we have to give a shout out to Delvin Skelski for that game-winning touchdown against the Bengals on Christmas Eve in 1989.
You know what? He was more of a special teamer than
Right.
he was a tight end.
But still,
well,
that's one of my favorite games of all time. Not because it was pretty much. I really wasn't allowed to watch. Like, I had to be in bed before Monday Night Football games were over. So, but that was a Christmas Eve game, so I was able to watch the whole thing. It was the Vikings did what they always do. They got out to a big lead, and Cincinnati, of course, came back. So yeah. So I just want to give a special shout out, even though he's not considered a great tight end. But I just have.
I consider him more of a better special teamer.
Yeah,
he was good, but he was definitely a special teamer.
Yeah. I think he had 3 special team touchdowns in that same game.
That game, no. The only ones that had touchdowns were
no. Did I say? I mean, I said tackles. I think.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. He had like 3 or 4 tackles in that game, plus a touchdown. It was like one of the best games he's had in his whole career, and it was like his bright spot. But damn it, if you're gonna have a bright spot, have it be on Christmas Eve, saving the Viking season and getting them into the playoffs.
Yeah, it was even better because they won and we knocked the Packers.
Knocked the Packers out.
We knocked out the Packers and
the Bengals allowed Houston.
The Steelers got in.
The Steelers got in. Yeah.
Yep. The Steelers got in
because they had the camera in a Packers player's house and a Steelers player's house. Monday Night Football did.
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh. Yep. So that's offensive. I know we didn't spend much time on tight ends, but everybody knows the tight ends is not
tight end history. Minnesota is outside of Jordan and Rudolph,
Stu Voigt and Sensor.
Stu Voigt,
and Rudolph. Everybody, but those are the 4 tight ends everybody knows.
Right.
T.J. Hawkinson is probably going to be the most prolific tight end when he retires. That doesn't mean he's going to be the best, but he'd be the most prolific if he keeps going the way he's going. Like I said, he's already 8th in most categories. He's only been here a year and a half.
Okay. So Zoe's got an idea here. Best offensive weapons in team history.
I can do that right now. 84, 44. Boom, we're done. 84, 44.
I'm gonna go 84, 44, and then Zoe's like number 12. That's it.
I rest my case, Your Honor. The defense rests. But we can 84, do
84, 44, and 12.
Yeah. But no, we could do a show on that.
We'll definitely do a show on that. Definitely, because
we're just joking, but those are the top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll add a few, but right now at the top of that list is 84, 44, and 12.
Yeah. I got jerseys
he
of
was-
both. I don't have a Harvin jersey, but
okay.
God,
First of all, I'm a D lineman type
his
of guy.
migraines. Oh my God, if he didn't have migraines, how good would he have been? Anyway,
I just don't wear. I've always been a lineman, so for me to wear like a number 1 through 12, it ain't happening.
Well, I don't wear any new guys' jerseys. If you're younger than me, I ain't wearing your jersey. Moss and I are around the same age, so
yeah, I don't. I have the last.
Like my mom got me a Thielen jersey.
I don't have any modern uniforms. I either got uniforms with my name on the back and my number, or they're the old school players.
Right. Well, I got my mom got me an Adam Thielen jersey. Mm-hmm. I told her I thank her for it, but I never wore it. I have they're either the same age as me or they're older. Like I have a Chris Hovan jersey I still wear from time to time. I got the Foreman. I got the Moss. I got the Robert Smith. I got the Chester Taylor. I got Warren Moon, and I have an Anthony Carter jersey. So, like I said, they're either all my age or older than me.
I have a Carl Eller and I have a Gary Larson autographed.
Yeah.
I don't have a Page or a Marshall. I got to get those next.
Yeah.
So, but okay.
So
Zoe comes up with an idea. We'll definitely cover weapons.
Hey.
Any other ideas in the chat, folks? We are open to them. Any suggestions at all?
Yeah, I do go back and look at the comments on the show. So we will, like I said, if you guys come up with Bob, I know you love history. If you can ever think of something, let us know. Frozen, same thing. George, T-Bass, if you guys ever come up with an idea, let us know.
The only thing as far as left for players to us to cover really are what linebackers and
linebackers, safeties, and defensive backs. That's it.
Yeah,
because we're not going to do punters and kickers.
Was Denny in charge of the draft? Did he oversee the draft? Yes, he did. Yes, he did, and that's why he took Moss.
Yeah,
Denny took Moss because Denny knew that he could work with Moss, that he could actually keep Randy under control. And also Randy's brother was up here at the time too.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Randy fell to us is still to this day a head scratcher.
Thank you, Jerry.
The Bengals passed on him twice.
Yeah.
Thank
God Jerry Jones is such a liar.
Yeah, and the fact that he got to us, it was a match made in heaven because when he got up here, and Denny knew how to make him a valuable part of his team.
Plus, now that they had Carter and Reed.
Yeah, they had two. He had two people that would show him how to be, for a better term, responsible NFL player.
Yeah,
but
and I think Glover was a tight end too. Was it Glover or was it?
It was Glover. Yeah, Glover was here.
Yeah.
You had Robert Smith. You had
the nephew of Danny Glover, by the way.
Yep. You had players up here that would have kept Moss in check. So.
Yes. Well, Chris Carter needed to be saved, and the Vikings were the perfect team to save him. And to this day, anytime there's an interview with Chris Carter, he will tell you that Buddy Ryan saved his life.
Yeah, by cutting him.
Yeah,
by cutting him.
So the two things that happened to Chris Carter, it's kind of the perfect situation. He needed to be cut. The Eagles needed to cut him because they couldn't do it, and the Vikings were the perfect team. They had the support system in place for him to succeed.
And when he got up here, it was during the Jerry Burns regime, but he had Anthony Carter and Hassan Jones. He had Steve Jordan. He had Randall McDaniel. He had a nucleus of players up here that would work with him. He even had Chris Dolman, Keith Millard, Henry Thomas. He had that Studwell. Scott Studwell was still playing.
Well, it really wasn't a gamble, though. They only paid $100 for him.
Yeah, that was pretty cheap.
I mean, I guess you could say it was a gamble, but
put it this way:
they knew he could catch.
Yeah, and and the biggest slam should be on Buddy Ryan for saying what he said. Buddy
All he
Ryan,
does is catch touchdowns.
all he did was catch touchdown passes. Okay, dude, really? You're cutting him because he catches touchdown passes? Okay. Yes, he did. He had an alcohol problem.
Yes.
He had an alcohol problem. But one of the reasons he came here, I believe he had to go to Hazleton, which is
was it Betty Ford?
No, he went to Hazleton.
Okay.
Which is the drug treatment center up here. He might have went to Betty Ford, but when you come to Minnesota, Hazleton Clinic is world renowned.
So are you saying you have a drinking problem? You're a Vikings fan, so it doesn't surprise me.
Actually, no, you should have a drinking problem. You're a Vikings fan. You're a raging alcoholic by now.
Well, it could be worse. We could be Lions fans.
Trust me, after last Sunday's game, I was tempted to start drinking again. Trust me.
God, I appreciate what Dobbs did.
By the way, for all of us that watched that game, we should all be compensated financially for watching that bullshit. NFL owes us some money.
Fast action policy. Were you harmed by watching a 3-0 NFL game?
Jeez. I'm ready to call JG Wentworth and see if I can get anything for this shit.
It's your money. Use it when you want it.
But yeah.
Oh man.
So we'll work on offensive weapons podcast. We'll probably do the linebackers and DBs next week. You kind of roll them one.
Could you I don't know. We might have to break those up.
You think so?
Because our secondary, we've had some good linebackers, but our safeties and corners over the years. No, we could probably fit it in. We've done 3-hour shows before, so
right.
Yeah, we could probably fit them both in.
Yeah, we could do that.
So once we do that, then we're done with positions.
Right. So then it's got to be, I don't know, it gets heartbreaking if you want to talk worst playoff losses, worst losses, anything in that, or biggest wins for whatever reason. There's tons of things to talk about, and we can delve into certain players if you want.
Certain seasons. There's a lot to talk about. I think if we talk about the 09 or 98 season, then we'll probably get a lot of people.
We should hit up that 98 season one more time and relive.
I'll ask Yogi if he wants to be on for that, because he's got the setup to where if we need to play highlights or whatever from that season,
he's got the highlights. Okay, that works.
Yeah, he has a setup. I only have one monitor. You need 2 monitors for that.
Okay,
so he has that set up, so we can get with Yogi to see if he can do a vintage that'll, you know what? So next week will be positions, and then the last show before Christmas, we can do the 98 season.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. You know what, Zoe? That's a very good question, and that's a Minnesota question. We just can't get over the hump. With
just
all the
twins
we have, we just can't.
Yeah.
We don't know. I don't know why. We're talking teams from back in the day that were some of the best in the NFL, and they just could not do it. And
75 was probably their chance, but they got screwed.
Yeah, and there's a whole conspiracy thing to that too. I'll have to explain to you.
So we can do that too. That can be our. So yeah. Oh, we can do that. So we can. So next 3 shows will be the defensive backs, linebackers, 98 season, and then 75 season.
Sounds like a plan.
So there you guys go. Those are our next 3 shows.
Yep. And on that note, good night, everybody.
We'll see you guys Friday for our bi-weekly status of the NFC North. It's been a pleasure. We thank everybody, guys, for watching and being here as usual.
Thanks again.
Yep.
Vikings, let's win this game. Score, Vikings, honor in the name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock up